Welcome back to the Wildlife Garden Project. Me and Jack Perks here have had a very exciting morning, haven't we?
We have, yeah. Not digging ponds actually, yeah.
We haven't had to dig a thing, but look at my new pond. So it's how would we describe this pond? A no-dig, it's a raised pond.
Yeah, it's a no-dig pond basically, so it just means that, well, we haven't had to dig, it's pretty self-explanatory.
No digging whatsoever. So we spent the morning doing this. We've also dug in a little mini pond, haven't we?
Yeah, minimal dig pond.
Minimal dig pond. So this is a great opportunity to talk to you a little bit about ponds that are great for wildlife but require sort of minimal effort. And it's also perfect, isn't it, for people who perhaps rent or haven't got much space. There's all kinds of options for ponds. But should we talk first of all then about why ponds are important for wildlife?
Yeah, I think one of the common things I hear people go is my garden's not big enough for a pond and whatnot, and any garden is big enough, as we'll kind of show later on, but ponds are so vital for birds getting a drink, as a stop-off point for amphibians, and just increasing biodiversity in your local area. So if you can have a pond of any size, you should have a pond.
What kind of wildlife can I expect to see visiting my brand new pond? What can I hope for?
Well, I don't think there's anything that you wouldn't get from a submerged pond, really. Frogs will use it. I mean, I get frogs in my sleeper pond, and hasn't got ladders or anything, so God knows how they backflips or something into it. But yeah, you could get frogs in it, you could get dragonflies. Certainly the birds will use it to drink. You mentioned you get like foxes in your garden. Mm-hmm. I don't see why they wouldn't kind of have a little drink out of there as well. So I don't think it's excluding anything by being raised.
So do you want to talk us through some of the options then that people might have that's, you know, an alternative to a traditional dug-in wildlife pond?
Yeah, there's lots of options. I think when you say pond to someone, they're like, oh, there's going to be loads of digging, or it's going to have to be massive, and that's not necessarily the case. So I would say for ease, the one that's conveniently behind us, which are these sort of made up ponds, I guess. So they don't take very long to build. You literally just slap them somewhere flat, put the sides together, and away you go.
Because it took us, an hour, would you say? So yeah. It's a case of sort of just laying down a little cosy blanket, yeah, and then assembling the pieces, and then some liner, yeah, filling it up, plugging some plants in. Like, it was a pretty simple procedure, wasn't it? It was. Like,
if I can do it, anyone can do it. Yeah. So yeah, it was really easy. So I would say that if you just want kind of an easy time, something like this is a great option. Budgets might dictate that a little bit, but I'd recommend it. They're a nice, easy one to do. This is a Blagdon pond. I'm not sure if there are others on the market, but it's literally sold as a no dig, so it's perfect for that. You can DIY it. You could try and make your own. So like you've seen the ponds at my house, yeah, which are with sleepers. Obviously they're a lot bigger. You could do a much smaller version than that. So you could do a raised pond just with sleepers or something like that. Put a liner in there and do it yourself. So they're not too difficult to make, and they've got advantages. The other ones are container ponds. So that's where you maybe take something that's not meant to be a pond but can be used as one. So maybe like a barrel, half a barrel, or a sturdy plant pot. It's just worth remembering you don't want anything that's going to rot down, because obviously if you want your pond to last for ages, like a washing up bowl is going to be brittle after a couple of years. So it needs to be out of sturdy material, but that can be another option that people can use as well.
So of course this morning, as well as assembling this pond, we did dig a mini pond, and there was a little bit of digging involved.
Yeah,
but not a huge amount.
Can't sell that as a no dig, maybe like a minimal dig. You can buy small ponds that are already pre-formed, and they require a little bit of digging, but not too much. They might dry out in like severe heat waves, so you need to kind of bear that in mind. But as a little bog pond or a pit stop pond, they're brilliant, and they don't require too much work either. So they're definitely worth look at getting as well.
Is there anything we need to bear in mind in terms of positioning? Like, is it better to be in the sun or the shade, or is there anything else we should think about?
Yeah, so a bit of both is good. Like a little bit of sun for your pond plants is great. Full sun isn't ideal because you can get big algal blooms and obviously more evaporation. But full shade does mean the plants in there aren't going to grow as well. So yeah, ideally, but I realise that if you are working with a small garden with constraints, you might not have that luxury. So, that's something to consider. So like, we've got hedges behind us. You don't want too many leaves going in, so that's something to consider. But you might be getting a bit of shade from that as well. So it's kind of ups and downs. And because we're not digging the pond in for most of these, you want to make sure that the surface is flat. So as flat as it can be, like soften it up maybe with some sand, some mud, use a spirit level just to be 100% sure. But as long as it's flat, the pond should be level and you're good to go.
Okay, good. But essentially what you're saying is it's always better to have a pond than not a pond. So even if the conditions aren't ideal, then it's still worth doing it, isn't it?
Even if you're in full shade and there's a hedge, if you're willing to have a pond there, I would still have a pond. There will be things that will benefit from it. So yeah, always have a pond if you're happy to have a pond.
What about plant recommendations then? Because you've obviously kindly donated, I hope, some plants.
Well, I need to send the invoice actually, so that's a bit awkward. We'll talk about that when we stop.
We'll sort that out later. But you've kindly certainly bought some plants for me to put in my 2 ponds today, and there were certain ones that went into this one, and there were certain plants that went into the mini pond. How would people decide what to plant in their ponds?
So it's all to do with depth. So this pond is, I think it's like 35 cent or something like that. So there's a bit of depth to it. So there are lilies in here, there are oxygenators, there's water soldier. So they all want to be in ponds that are always going to have a good amount of water cover. Whereas the other pond over there, it's only like a few inches deep. So anything that needs to be completely covered in water isn't going to be suitable for that. So it's more marginal vegetation in the shallow pond, things like flag iris, marsh marigold, water mint, stuff like that. So they both have value, but they've both got different plants in there. These raised ponds, well, sometimes they have little pockets where you can put marginal plants in there. So even though there's not a shelf, you can put an added shelf in, so you've got that in there as well.
And what about other sort of features then? Because we've obviously made this look, well, as pretty as we can make a plastic pond. By the way, this is very new. We literally did this morning.
Yeah.
It's getting a little bit nicer, isn't it, when the plants are established? We've got a bit of planting going on around the edge. But in terms of wildlife-friendly features, what are the sort of things that people can kind of add?
So I think it's also important to note that the frogs and stuff don't care how it looks. I know me and you are like...
I care how
I know you might care. But yeah. So it's amazing how animals will find their way in. And obviously, this one's got a handy little kind of like ramp ladder thing. So they can literally crawl up, get in, and also they can get out nice and easy, which is really important. But like in my ponds at home, the sleeper ponds, I found loads of frogs and newts in there, and I'm not trying to get them in there, and they find a way in. So what's the Jurassic Park where life finds a way? Like stuff can get in.
Life always finds a way.
Yeah, but we've obviously kind of cobbled together some rocks and logs, and that's a bit of a ladder as well. So if you were doing this yourself, you could just put rocks and logs and things will kind of crawl in and out nice and easy. So as long as animals have access to get in and out of your pond, then you're good to go.
Because some people talk, don't they, about, especially on ponds like this when they're a lot deeper, there's a danger that certain animals, including hedgehogs, can kind of get in and not find a way out. So as much as we want them to get in, we also need them to be able to get out. So
100%.
There's a few things people can do, can't there? So whether it's...
So this one in particular, it's got like a little shelf, but if it's your own DIY pond, you could just stack some rocks in the corners and stuff. Or, I mean, if you're making it yourself, you could build a shelf into it. But yeah, as long as there is some kind of shelf area for animals to get in and out, that's easy enough for them, then you're good.
Once the ponds are sort of all set up, then what do we need to think about in terms of maintenance?
So it's pretty much the same as a big pond, really. Make sure there's not too much debris going in, like leaves falling in, stuff like that. If there is sludge, remove a little bit of the sludge. If there is excess algae, you can remove a little bit of that. If the plants get too numerous, kind of thin those out a little bit. So it's all exactly the same as a larger pond, but on a smaller scale. The bonus being that, say if the water quality was terrible, you could drain a small pond dead easy and fill it back up again. Whereas with a larger pond, you might not necessarily want to do that. But you don't have to do water changes. It's only if it got really, really bad and you could maybe swap the water out.
And I guess as well, in terms of the water level, I know that on my old pond, which was quite shallow, in the summer I was constantly topping it up. And I imagine that's something you have to keep on top of, especially with smaller and more shallow ponds. Yeah,
definitely. So not so much with this one, there's a little bit of depth there, but with the really shallow ponds, and they're going to dry out potentially quite quickly over the summer. The plus side of that is they fill up quickly as well. So it's literally like one watering can and they can be filled up. So depending what you've got in that pond, you might want to consider whether you need to constantly keep it topped up or whether you're happy for it to dry out. Ponds drying out is a natural process. It does happen in the wild. So yeah, it depends how hands-on you want to be with them. But as long as you've got fairly robust marginal plants in those thin ponds, they should be all right, but you can always top them up dead easy.
And it's rainwater generally is better, isn't it? But
yeah,
if you don't have the means to collect it, so you can kind of leave it in buckets and things and let the chlorine and things evaporate, can't we?
Yeah, chlorine dissipates pretty quickly. So, it's not ideal, but I get that, the bigger the pond, the harder it's going to be to just do rainwater. With these smaller ponds, the advantage is it's a lot easier to just do with rainwater. But yeah, if you have got the choice, rainwater is best. If not, as you say, just fill up some buckets with tap water and just leave it for a couple of days and then put it back into the ponds.
So Jack, any final words of advice for someone who perhaps, wants a pond but doesn't know what option to go for?
I guess kind of have a look at the ponds that we've mentioned, whether it's the raised ponds, the mini submerged ones, the DIY ones. Work out which is best for your situation, what you can afford, what you're physically able to do, what you're allowed to do maybe, and go with that. Any pond is better than no pond. So just get a pond in your garden now.
I've just come back to say, after Jack's dramatic ending there, which he's right, I do very much want all of you to get a pond, but please do let us know if you do. Send us some photos on social media, follow me, follow Jack, and also check out our other video that we did very recently about maintaining your garden pond. So hope you've got something out of today. Thanks Jack for your for your hard work not digging.
I supervise.
It's always the way, isn't it? You're always
Yeah.
always the supervisor.
I don't want to break character.
Yeah. But yes, thank you for joining us.
No, it's been good. Enjoyed it.
Good.